Hey everybody, today is November 21st, 2024, and today we're going to talk about the price of Bitcoin and where I see the price of Bitcoin headed towards for the month of December. Before we continue, please pause the video and read the disclaimer. Okay, so Bitcoin, absolutely ripping right now, right? Where we left off last time was in late October. My prediction for November was that we were probably going to straddle this Fibonacci's resistance level for a while before breaking out. Now this absolutely smashed through my expectations, and now we're pretty much just at the cups of 100,000. So that's awesome because, like I've said over like the last several months, that I am fully positioned in spot and in stocks, miners, and we can go through that later. Miners, MicroStrategy, which I did actually sell yesterday and got a lot of flack for, even though it's pulling back now. But we'll get into that later. Oh, by the way, I am a little bit sick, so if I do cough a couple times throughout this video, I do apologize for that in advance. So basically, my thesis last time was that, as you can see, our last cycle in 2021, the bull cycle top, you can see that we basically hit the all-time high around 69, 70,000, right? And the reason why I feel like we consolidated so long for 8 months this year was that we were having a hard time breaking through this double top. Double top is a notoriously strong resistance area. When this turns into a bear market like it did in 2022, this became very strong resistance, right? And you can see all these different resistance levels that we had to break through to get out of the 2022 bear market low, right? We fell through the 200-day moving average, which historically is a strong support level, right? You can see here, this was the bottom of the 2015 bear market. Over here, bottom of the 2018 bear market, and we held support here when COVID crashed, right, the market. And this was really the first time where we spent a significant amount of time below the 200-week moving average. So the 200-week ended up becoming strong resistance, which is why we consolidated last summer for so long, right? After this impulse move up from the bottom, consolidation, and then an impulse move up, the spot Bitcoin ETF approval over here, and here, now 8 months in consolidation. A lot of people were surprised, right, that we had such a long consolidation. But if you look at the previous cycle, when we look at resistance levels, it does tend to make sense, right, why we spent so long. And this is also the Fibonacci. This also happens coincidentally to be the Fibonacci top, right, from the previous all-time high. And now we're going to break through to the next level, and we're going to test the next resistance level, which is around 102,000, right, based on this Fibonacci extension from the bottom of the bear market low to the top of the previous bull market top. Excuse me. And so things are looking very, very bullish, if not somewhat overextended. You can see the RSI is hitting into this zone that is, I colored it red to signal overbought. But just because something's overbought doesn't mean it can't keep going up higher, right? Obviously, we had overbought zones down here, over here, and it just kept going higher. So I'm not saying that we're suddenly going to crash. This is probably, because this is a breakout to new all-time highs, this is probably an impulse move up to newer price levels, right? But we are getting closer to a milestone, which is 100,000, and also to this Fibonacci resistance level, right, which is around 102,000. So I do think that as we get closer here, we're going to get more and more selling and more resistance around this level. So I do think that this is the level where we're probably going to consolidate for a while before pushing up higher. I know I said that over here, but we just spent 8 months, so I guess in hindsight it did make sense that we would just rip up higher. But not only that, one of the reasons why we ripped up higher is this. You can see this candle, right? This breakout candle was after the election, when Donald Trump was elected again as president-elect. And this is bullish because Trump is obviously a Republican candidate, and Republicans are usually pro business, but he also went on a campaign this summer, and he was very pro Bitcoin, pro crypto, and he said he wanted to fire Gary Gensler, who has his regulation by enforcement has not been looked on favorably by people in the industry. He's also said he's planning on creating a Bitcoin reserve, and there's also other senators like Lummis who have already written up a plan and submitted it, and so people are expecting next year they're expecting Trump to be a very pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto president. So this is one of the reasons why we've seen such a huge rip-up high, right? But again, we're here to look at both sides, both the bullish and the bearish scenario, to keep ourselves anchored in reality. So before we do that, excuse me, let's look at some of the macro factors, right? So one of the reasons why the stock market did so well and also the crypto market did so well this year is the fact that we saw inflation finally trending down, right? Now we did see a bit of a move higher in our last CPI report, but that was expected, right? We generally aren't going to keep seeing it go down in a straight line, so this is not necessarily a bad sign, but we do want to see it over time continue to trend towards 2%, which is the Fed's target rate, right? So you can see the Fed has lowered rate. They lowered their first initial rate 50 basis points, and then the second time 25 basis point, right? And people expect them to continue to lower their lower interest rate in their target as long as CPI continues down towards 2%, right? Now, very quickly, I do want to talk about potential headwinds, right? Because we want to look at both sides of the picture. You can see that the effects of the interest rates decline. Cutting interest rate is starting to be represented on this graph, right? You see it curling down. Now, notice how every time the interest rates gets cut, we are followed by a recession. So that is something to think about. It doesn't necessarily mean the recession has to be severe or really bad, because in a lot of ways we sort of been in a silent recession throughout. Like we've seen the cost of living go up higher. People have really complained about how their budget is being stretched, and just their wages aren't keeping up with the rise in inflation, right? The second thing is, this is something that people aren't really talking about, but excuse me, is the yield curve inversion. It is now uninverted, right? And you see it sort of like poked its head out. Now, if you look at the last several decades, you'll see that every time the yield curve uninverts, it's followed by a recession, which is this gray shaded area. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the recession is going to be severe. Like in COVID, we had this very shallow recession, because in a lot of ways we sort of had a silent recession, like I just said. But it's just something to think about, right? I know everyone right now, the sentiment is very bullish, and there's a lot to be bullish about, and we'll talk about that. But these are just potential headwinds that might affect the stock market, and we know how crypto follows the stock market, right, as a risk-on asset sort of behavior. So these are some headwinds to think about going forward. But for the most part, Bitcoin is looking very optimistic. And my prediction for the month of December is that I think we're going to hit this resistance level at 100,000, and this Fibonacci level 100 to just over 100,000. Definitely going to find some resistance just below it, right? There's a lot of massive sell orders at or below 100,000. So I do think we're going to spend December kind of consolidating. We might have people kind of panic and might see some flash crashes, but I think overall probably form like a ascending triangle or some sort of consolidation before we push up higher into new all-time highs and price discovery for 2025, right? So that's just the gist of what I'm expecting. But let's look at some of the data, right? So hash rate right now is moving to new all-time highs, right? This is almost 800 exahash per second, which again, this is new all-time highs, and usually the price of Bitcoin will follow because as the hash rate goes up, the overall security of the Bitcoin network goes up as well, right? So hash rate going up is very positive for the foreshadowing the move of price of Bitcoin potentially higher, right? Let's look at the 2-year multiplier. Again, we've been following this chart since when I was making videos when it was easily below the green line, right? And I said that I don't give financial advice, but I personally was buying a lot down here, right? A lot of spot crypto and also mining stocks, right, down here. And since then we've broken above, and so we're sort of in this like bullish posture. As you look at the previous cycles, when it breaks above, it tends to rise above to this sort of red-orange line, and that's usually when we're starting to get overbought, right? And that's when you want to think about potentially taking profits. But we're nowhere near that. We're pretty much like almost halfway. So there's a lot of potential, and that line right now is 214,000, right? So just to get there, we have to go up to 214,000, and that's just in a straight line. As we move slowly towards that orange, excuse me, red line, that line is going to continue higher, giving us a higher ceiling, a higher point at which the apex of this bull market can peak out, right? So again, very bullish. Pi cycle top indicator, to me, one of my favorite top indicators. This generally gives you within a couple of days, plus or minus a couple of days, that the top could be in when the orange line crosses above the green line, and you get this dotted print, right? So this has pretty closely, not perfectly, but pretty closely called the top within a few couple of days, right? Obviously, the last cycle, we did go up a little higher in November, but that was ended up in hindsight being a bearish divergence with lower volume. And so even though it did go up a little higher, it was really not that much higher. So this generally was a good exit signal if you followed it. So this is something I'll be looking at this time. But overall, this cycle does seem to be following more of the 2016, 2017, which is more like a slow, steady rise. And I said that on my X page, Eddie Lux underscore, if you can follow that. I'll have the link below. But pinned at the top of my comment is where I believe this price action is falling very closely to what we saw this in 2017 bull market, where we'll probably get like a slow parabolic rise that might peak a lot higher on a percentage basis than what we saw in 2021, right? Where we saw almost like a mad dash to all-time highs, right? That was fed off the stimulus that the government was giving out during COVID. But we also peaked earlier and got double top peak, right? But this time, it seems like we're taking a slower approach, which might peak a lot higher, right? Because when it goes up too fast, these lines will cross a lot quicker, giving us an exit signal, right? Excuse me. Whereas the price takes its time to hit the apex of this bull market. That'll make the orange line cross above the green line, giving us an exit signal a lot later, right? Giving us a potential higher exit signal. So right now, that green line is about 120,000, right? Now, of course, as the price action develops going forward, that green line is going to go up a little higher. It's going to go up higher over time, and that orange line will also curl up as well. So we might actually get an exit signal a lot higher, maybe around 200,000, right? Like our previous indicator. Golden ratio multiplier, again, this price action just below the green line in 2020, and just below the green line in 2016, 2017, right? So still a lot of potential to push up higher, right? And all of these lines are easily above 100,000. So again, just another chart showing the potential bullish price action trajectory, right? And this is a price forecast tool that combines a lot of different things, right? So you can see down here, delta top, balance price, terminal price. These are different exit and entry signals, right? Bottom and top signals combined to try and basically superimpose on each other to give you an easier way to visualize where the potential top and bottom might be. So you can see that the bottoms are usually where the green and orange line are, and the red, purple, and blue lines are usually where the top is, right? So we're sort of somewhere in the middle, and all of these lines are easily over 100,000, right? With the blue line being over, like 400,000. Now, we haven't hit the 400. We didn't hit the blue or purple line in the last cycle. We hit the red line. So the red line currently looks to be at 171,000. So if we do hit the red line again, or somewhere below the red line as our top, again, that'll easily be over 100,000, right? And this line is just going to keep curling higher as the price action develops going forward, right? So that might give us a higher top around 200. So all of these indicators I just went through seem to be giving us a potential exit at least 100,000 to maybe 200,000, right? And that's in line in what a lot of people have said. The cycle might peak somewhere. My prediction was earlier like 150 to 180, but now that Trump is president and he's seriously in the possibility of a Bitcoin reserve is the probability of that has been going up over time. And I do think that we might actually see the price of Bitcoin, and of course this is going to depend on the sort of price action. If it is a slow parabolic rise, I do see the possibility that we can actually hit over 200,000. So, but of course we got to take our time to analyze that as the price action develops going forward, right? You don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, right? This year hasn't ended yet. We still have one more month. But overall, based on everything that I went through, I do think that that 2025 is going to be a very, very good year, right? I mean, just look at this chart, right? It's spectacular, right? 8 months of consolidation and now a breakout, right? Defending the 50-week moving average. And I talked about this in the last 2 videos, right? If we lost this 50-week, we would have plunged into a bear market, right? And we were sort of like trending downward, but we've defended it, and now breaking out of this consolidation area, absorbing all the sell pressure, and now just ripping up higher towards 100,000, right? So overall, very bullish going forward for at least the next 10 to 12 months, right? So just very quickly, let's look at the dollar, right? The dollar and Bitcoin, and to extend the stock market, tends to have an inverse relationship, meaning that if the dollar is strong, then the stock market is usually weak, along with Bitcoin, right? And vice versa. Now, something very interesting happening is that the dollar has been gaining strength while the market has been hitting all-time highs, right? The stock market and the Bitcoin and crypto markets, right? Bitcoin in particular. So this is very rare that we see them both moving in unison. But I do think eventually it's going to revert back to what it is, an inverse relationship. And so you can see that the dollar is sort of becoming a bit exhausted to the upside. We're getting close to that overbought zone. I mean, let's just look at how many weeks it's been in a row. So I can see this coming down, maybe consolidating around 100, potentially going down lower and forming a base. And this whole pullback might give Bitcoin more fuel to push up higher, right? Push up even higher. But for just the month of December, because this video is covering the month of December, I do think that this time we probably will consolidate for a while in December and then push up higher, either at the end of December or the early next year, maybe Q1 easily, like January or February. But there's just a lot of like bullish exuberance, right? The sentiment, everyone online, just very, very bullish. And there's a lot of reasons to be that I just stated, right? But I do think it's important to be prudent as well and think about just look at things at a more realistic stance, right? There's a lot of sell orders at 100,000, and this is strong resistance level, right? 100,000 is a strong psychological level, and also we have the Fibonacci resistance level, and these levels have proven themselves to be strong support resistance. I mean, just look at this consolidation, right? Strong resistance here, and also strong support down here, right? And then we broke above, but then we came down, retested this flipped resistance. This was resistance over here, right? This was resistance. We came up, came down, retested, held it, flipped it to support, and it just ripped up higher, right? So this is why I like Fibonacci's. They tend to be reliable for me. So as we get closer to 100,000, I do see this being a strong resistance area. Again, my prediction: consolidate, absorb the supply from the bears, and then push up higher to new all-time highs, either late December or early January, right? And but of course, there's a lot of different factors as well, right? CPI, Fed, are they going to lower rates again? And of course, the headwinds that I talked about with the possible recession. Maybe not too bad, maybe a shallow recession. And by the way, that recession doesn't have to happen next year or anything. It's just something to think about going forward. We tend to have recessions after we see interest rates rise. Interest rates fall when the Fed starts to cut rates, and also when we see the yield curve uninvert, right? Nothing too major, especially since we have a pro-crypto, pro-business, American business, pro-market president who's about to be inaugurated in January, right? So yeah, overall, things are looking very, very bullish, and I'm excited for December and also 2025. And I'll definitely update you guys based on the information going forward and how the price action develops going forward. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, useful, and informative, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for updates. I appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.